Hello again, average moviegoers. Today we're talking about Song Sung Blue and whether it's a song worth singing or one you forget halfway through the chorus. Song Sung Blue stars Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson as Lightning and Thunder, a musical duo from Wisconsin who cover various artists but find a certain rhythm interpreting Neil Diamond's music. But make no mistake, this is not a biopic for Neil Diamond. And also, it's not really a biopic for lightning and thunder. In fact, this movie is not really what I expected at all. I came into this movie with pretty low expectations and a healthy dose of skepticism, and I was pleasantly surprised. However, this movie doesn't always strike a perfect chord. Sometimes it goes off key, and we'll get to those bits. I want to start by saying that one of my biggest fears going into a movie like this is that I'll be missing out on a lot of the movie because I'm a film nerd who didn't really get into music all that much. So there were some moments where names and bands and songs were thrown around that I didn't recognize, yet I didn't feel left out. Song Sung Blue is self-aware enough to acknowledge that a lot of people might only know Sweet Caroline, and the movie incorporates that into its primary themes in a smart way. So while there was a lot of music history knowledge that could add to your enjoyment of this movie, I wouldn't feel daunted or worried that it'll be unapproachable for that reason. Because again, I wouldn't really say that this is about Neil Diamond and his music all that much. It's more of a love story and a drama and a comedy. The Neil Diamond impersonating is really only a framework and a context for telling a story about this family. As such, this is a movie that is made or broken by the chemistry of its two leads, and I'm happy to say that Hugh and Kate have excellent chemistry and are a lot of fun to watch on the screen. Their love and passion for each other in music and how they intersect with one another is totally believable, and both of them do a great job dissolving into these characters and feeling like they're people from Wisconsin. Obviously, others might have more experience and be more critical of their accents, but I thought they had a lot of charm and pulled off this kind of lower middle class, small fish in a big pond story. And one thing that's refreshing about this story is it breaks through a mold of a lot of these movies that we've seen that are like Theory of the Great Man movies. All these larger than life, extraordinary figures with glorified qualities that shape events and change the course of history. These stories of ambition and conquering and being the top of the field, of being the best. I enjoy these stories and can enjoy them. I expect to enjoy Marty Supreme, but nonetheless, it was a breath of fresh air to have a story about normal people whose ambitions are to play at the local casino and just be local heroes of their town and just really want to do what they love for their community. And it felt nice to remember that the music industry isn't just pop stars touring the world, it's also talented people who play in bars around the city for most of their lives. It was also nice to have a romance movie featuring middle-aged, divorced people with young adult children. That's a demographic of people who don't get a lot of love stories made about them. But back to performances, there's a lot of range that Kate and Hugh have to perform in their parts, and I thought that they did a very convincing job portraying the high and lows of mental health, addiction, coping or not coping with life, pursuing or neglecting passion. Kate in particular gives an award-worthy performance. There's more depth to this movie than you might expect, including themes of aging, which I thought was interesting for two stars to be embracing roles that openly acknowledge that they themselves are entering the second halves of their lives. In a lot of ways, this movie is about how life happens and how we have to deal with the cards that were dealt. I also thought a lot about energy and how people around us can invigorate us and help us enter special moments, especially through a piece of music like Sweet Caroline, but also how bad energy can drag everyone else around us down and throw us all into a funk. But make no mistake, this movie is full of joy and laughs and a kinetic energy, which is the tone for most of this film, with a few wrenches thrown in. There's a twist around the midpoint of the movie that was really shocking and quite effective. It had me feeling all sorts of things. But then this moment is completely thrown off and all the emotional weight is sucked out of it. And I was a little angry because I went from crying and being astonished at the effectiveness of this tonal shift to wondering why they immediately went on to undermine the weight of this moment with this side thing. I don't have an eloquent way of putting it. The only way I can think to describe it is like emotional blue balls. We were having a moment, we were doing some movie magic, hitting the feels, and then the moment got ruined. And this isn't the only time that I felt cheated by the movie. There's a fake out towards the end that was extremely frustrating and was a really cheap move. that made me roll my eyes and lessened the impact of the ending. I'd hate to use the term emotionally manipulative because I feel like people say that when they think a movie is overly sentimental or tugs on the heartstrings. But in this case, I want to use that term because something about this movie's script started to feel very deliberate in writing twists and turns and serendipities and fake outs in a very formulaic way. Almost like the writer had pulled up a template for screenplays and said, okay, here we have to do the third act setback, and now it's the midpoint twist, and so on. Which I get happens and it's a part of the craft, but I usually don't feel the formula as much as I felt it here. And I think part of it is that the movie was feeling unique and original for the first half, and then it started to resemble A Star is Born in a lot of the beats and even the emotional resolution. Then that made me look back at the movie and realize, man, they really just wanted to take all the heavy hitting tug at your heartstring themes like alcoholism and painkiller addiction, teen pregnancy, economic disparity, mental illness, grief. It just bit off a little more than it could chew. And my tears from the middle of the movie did not persist at the end when the tears should have started flowing again. And then again, I did appreciate some inventive filmmaking and creative choices that were made. There's really compelling dream sequence that stood out to me. There's some nice parallel between shots and the camera, the way it moves when Kate and Hugh are singing together. I thought it was great. So to put it succinctly, I was totally on board with this movie until we got closer to the end where it got a little shakier and caused my assessment to become slightly more mixed. But overall, I think this is a really solid movie that surprised me, made me laugh and cry, and I don't feel like my time was wasted. Is it a must-see cinematic event of the year? No, but I don't think you would regret seeing it, especially if you don't want to spend over 3 hours seeing Avatar this weekend. You'll have a great time at Song Sung Blue. That's it for me, you guys. Did you see this movie? Let me know what you thought of it. Be respectful and courteous in the comments. Back up your opinions, but remember that art is subjective. Above all else, keep seeing movies and stay average.